Alright guys, now we have a crazy video here to cover because someone in my comment section, thank you so much, by the way, pointed out to me that Daniel Cormier had a bit of a fragility moment on today's weigh-in show. So I went and took a look and I was absolutely floored with the way a drunken Daniel Cormier was basically complaining about racism that doesn't exist when discussing underappreciated champions. Not only that, Daniel Cormier basically called Jon Jones an Uncle Tom, which is unbelievable. I could not believe my ears, okay, that it was one of the most insane things I've ever heard in my life, and probably the last person on earth that I would ever consider calling that, okay? But so we're gonna cover this moment, and I really hope that the UFC does not copyright my content. So either way, I want to play the first clip for you guys, and then we will talk a little bit about it after that.
And then Aljamain Sterling at number one. Like, no matter what he did, it's like he could not win over people. And it wasn't even his fault. It was because Petr Yan needed him. Petr Yan did something illegal to him. So he got stuck with this stigma of being a faker and all the other stuff. And even when he was defending the belt and beating guys, Petr Yan included, they never gave him credit for it. It was very...
When they were first talking about the underappreciated champions, you can see all three of them up on screen. I'm breaking this up into a few more segments than I typically would to try and avoid copyright, just so you guys are aware, okay? But you see we've got Carla Esparza, Demetrious Johnson, and Aljamain Sterling. Now, number one, Carla Esparza was probably underappreciated because that fight with Rose Namajunas was one of the worst fights of all time, okay? So I think it's reasonable that the fans were irritated by her, and then in her very next fight she got finished, okay? And I understand she was the inaugural champion, but there wasn't really anybody around. Not to mention women's MMA kind of sucks, okay, if we're just being honest. And then we got Demetrious Johnson, who I agree was an underappreciated champion. Demetrious Johnson is one of my favorite fighters of all time. He would finish dudes. He was exciting in my opinion. It was just that the fan base had a hard time getting behind the smaller guys, okay? And then we have Aljamain Sterling, and Daniel Cormier tries to defend Aljamain Sterling, and that's the portion that I included just now. But what Daniel Cormier and so many others fail to recognize, and I actually did a video on this that I guess will come out after this one, is Aljamain Sterling shoots himself in the foot constantly. I think that Aljamain Sterling's nickname should be Cheddar Bob, because this guy continuously shoots himself in the foot that he's got nothing left down there. He's got to shoot his own legs, okay? He says unbelievably stupid things. He refuses to take accountability for literally anything. And even if you do acknowledge that Petr Yan was the one that fouled, okay, Aljamain Sterling abso-fucking-lutely faked that shit. All right, I'm not even going to argue with anybody about that. I have never seen anybody act the way that Aljamain Sterling did when he got kneed in the head. By the way, and that includes Aljamain Sterling, who we have also seen get kneed in the head, right? And get knocked out fucking cold. Do you understand? When we were watching the fight with Marlon Moraes, he gets up faster than he did against Petr Yan. And then when Aljamain Sterling finally loses the belt, again, refuses to take any sort of accountability for it and just blames the fact that he had to turn around in 3.5 months. Aljamain Sterling has shot himself in the foot constantly. But let's hear the other reason that Daniel Cormier thinks, because this is when we get into the crazy shit. And I actually can't believe that they let Daniel Cormier on the air this intoxicated, because this would not have came out had he not been drinking. But I'm glad that he was okay, because now we know what DC really thinks. All right, so I'm going to play that clip for you guys right now.
And obviously, you know, I have another reason that I think it plays a factor in, but...
Speak your mind.
Well, I just think that honestly it's a little harder for a person of color to get over. It doesn't happen as easily. It's the truth. So at least I feel that way. Aljo, Bilal, like, it's a little harder.
Okay, now DC thinks that the reason some of these champions get they're disliked, or they don't get the respect they deserve, or whatever the fuck it is, even though people just like different things, okay? I might not like Aljamain Sterling's personality, and it has nothing to do with the color of his skin. And to be quite honest, that is the case. That's the case with a lot of these fighters. But then you have fighters like Derek Lewis, you have fighters like Rampage Jackson back in the day, you have fighters like even Israel Adesanya, despite the amount of hate he gets, has a massive fan base, right? You get these guys that are black that have huge fan bases. And Daniel Cormier, even the examples that he gives, he points to Bilal. Who was the champion before Bilal, right? Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards was not getting any hate. In fact, people loved him because he knocked out Kamaru Usman. And so maybe Daniel Cormier would just argue that people like to see black on black crime, or I don't fucking know what he's talking about here, but this is absolutely unbelievable. But this isn't even the worst of it, okay? Because Daniel Cormier is about to go on and say something fucking unhinged. And, you know, I am concerned for Daniel Cormier's state here. I think that this man might be an alcoholic. And, you know, I just was very complimentary of Daniel Cormier on my commentator tier list, and now I'm you know, regretting my decision. But Daniel Cormier needs to lay off the rum and eggnog, otherwise he might start, you know, admitting to things that he will regret. So I'm going to play the rest of that clip for you right now, and we can talk about it after that.
I would just throw Jon Jones out there and say people got behind Jon Jones.
Jon Jones. God, this is gonna be. I don't like doing that.
Okay.
But Jon Jones is.
Jon Jones.
No.
I'm pouring a drink.
I can be honest
This
with you.
is gonna be
It's gonna make you
exciting.
uncomfortable, of course. But Jon Jones is.
What are you about to say?
Jon Jones is typical. Jon Jones is what's expected.
All right.
So
I don't know.
Let's leave it there. Bilal.
Holy fucking shit. Did Daniel Cormier just basically call Jon Jones an Uncle Tom? That is unbelievable to me, considering if you look at Daniel Cormier and you look at Jon Jones and you compare the two, who would you consider to be more typical? I, for one, before this, intoxicated race baiting situation here from Daniel Cormier, I would call Daniel Cormier the more typical one. Okay, because Jon Jones, listen, dude, maybe a bit of a touchy subject, but how many times has Daniel Cormier been arrested? You know, none that I'm aware of. Jon Jones is literally the negative stereotype. Okay, so I'm not, listen, dude, relax, okay? I'm not saying anything people don't think, right? You all think this, you might just not be afraid, you might just be afraid to say it, but Jon Jones is not typical in this. I swear to God, that's what Daniel Cormier is trying to say here, that because Jon Jones speaks a certain way, acts a certain way, and dresses a certain way, he's accepted by the MMA fan base at large, which is funny because I don't even know why that guy would bring up Jon Jones, right? Jon Jones is a cheating scumbag. Jon Jones is a wife beater. Jon Jones is a drunken criminal who hits pregnant women in their car. Is that what Daniel Cormier thinks of white people? I don't understand what the fuck he's talking about. Is this because Jon Jones voted a certain way? Like, I can't believe that he said this live on air. I'm gonna be honest. And even look at Bilal Muhammad's face. He's like, holy shit, what is happening? But the problem is that Bilal Muhammad has said stuff like this before in the past as well. But this is truly fucking crazy. I can't believe this. Thank you so much to the commenter that told me to go watch this. I am absolutely floored. And Daniel Cormier might need to go to a 12-step program because this is new. I've not heard Daniel Cormier complaining about racism before that doesn't fucking exist. Okay, a lot of the sport's most beloved figures are black, right? Anderson Silva, like this guy pointed out, Jon Jones, even though he shouldn't be beloved, he's an absolute scumbag. Daniel Cormier eventually won the hearts and minds of the fans, so I don't know what he is rambling about here, but this is, I mean, let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments. I am fucking floored that he just basically called Jon Jones an Uncle Tom. He said he was typical. You know, if that's not what you, dude, if you think he meant something else by that, please let me know what you guys think he meant by that, because that's all I can get from this, and I don't even really know what the fuck to say, okay? Because I'm shocked that he would say something like this live on air on the weigh-in show. This is unbelievable. And it's okay, you've got guys that they use as examples. Bilal Muhammad goes on to use Tyron Woodley as an example. I'll include that clip for you as well. You've got guys with massive character flaws, and just because the color of their skin is something else these guys immediately jump to that, right? So I would just flip it around and say that actually, Daniel Cormier, you're racist because you're not analyzing this based on who the individual is. You're basing it off of the color of their skin. I don't fucking understand this narrative, and I'm actually really disappointed that this is coming from Daniel Cormier, of all people. You know, I would have expected this actually from Bilal Muhammad before I would have expected it from Daniel Cormier. But let's play the next clip, okay?
Appreciate
If
it.
I might chime in. No, just
Actually, I was discussing this the other day.
As a white man, let me give you my.
Nope, I'm done.
Just like,
I do that with Chill on the show, and Chill's all, yeah, this conversation.
Yeah, that's a no-win.
we're out.
All right, Blah, what do you have?
Good thing I hadn't started drinking yet.
My list, number 3, Tyron Woodley.
Oh my God, I forgot about
You
him.
forgot about him, bro.
Oh, but guess what? He was.
Everyone
was.
on my list.
No, Laura, stop lying.
He was so good. He was a finisher. He did everything right. I think people just underappreciated him.
Okay, now there's the Tyron Woodley clip, but I first want to just touch on the beginning of that. So I'm recording this video as I watch this clip, and Daniel Cormier actually says that he has brought this up before on his show with Chael, which in my opinion is a more appropriate, avenue to go about this conversation rather than being live on air with the UFC, right, on their platform. But still, that is that bothers me, and I wasn't aware of that, so I'm going to amend what I said previously, that this was new, because apparently Daniel Cormier does this. And you know what else I'm going to do? I know Bilal Muhammad has brought it up in the past, but right now I think he is actually a little uncomfortable with this, because I think that he thinks this is going to make things worse for him in terms of the fan base, right? Because fans don't like this, okay? So to go off of his Tyron Woodley example, we have a guy that brought up race more than quite literally anybody. A guy that showed up in a criminal organization, merchandise, right? Black Lives Matter gear everywhere, which that organization was criminal, and they did absolutely nothing for the communities that they claimed to be trying to help. And Tyron Woodley just, it was all a big virtue signal. And not only that, he claimed that the UFC was racist, right? So this guy was constantly bringing up race because he couldn't seem to win the fans over. Meanwhile, it's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing, okay? The reason he couldn't win the fans over was because he wouldn't shut the fuck up about racism, which is unbelievably annoying to the vast majority of normal people. But something that I would point out as well is, on this card this weekend, one of the most hated people, probably the most hated fighter on this card is a white Irish guy, okay, who is fighting against a fucking Mongol Muslim or some shit from Kazakhstan. And it seems like the vast majority of people are rooting for the Muslim. And I think that that is a good indicator, a good example of how UFC fans, for the most part, do not just dislike you based on those characteristics, because we get this a lot from the Dagestan crowd, where people just accuse you of Islamophobia, or in the case of, Israel Adesanya, Aljamain Sterling, these guys, they accuse you of being racist. But when you've got a guy in Shavkat Rakhmonov who is a Muslim fighting Ian Gary, and the vast majority of people are rooting for, Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think that it shows UFC fans care about personality more so than they do where you come from, what you look like, or what kind of religion you are. Do you know what I mean? So this shit is just fucking mind-blowing to me, and I can't believe that Daniel Cormier is bringing this up. I'm actually floored, and I hadn't seen him do this with Chael Sonnen before. So, I thought Daniel Cormier was a real one. Turns out Daniel Cormier ain't no real one. And I do think that Bilal Muhammad's uncomfortable, because I think he's probably thinking in his head, like, shut up. People are going to attach me to what you're saying. People don't like this shit. For being honest, it's retarded. And so is Daniel Cormier, I guess, when he drinks a little bit. He's like sloppy. He's like slurring his words. I can't believe they let him go out there like this. This is fucking unbelievable. Right? So Daniel Cormier is a race baiter. I'm not going to blame Bilal here. I'm going to give Bilal Muhammad a pass on this one. He did look rather uncomfortable, and I'm just gonna, I've got a video coming out about Aljamain Sterling where I basically explain why people don't like him in just a little bit here, so I won't even get into all that. But even the examples they gave were bullshit, especially the Tyron Woodley one. That guy was the most entitled fighter, maybe of all time. Okay, he complained constantly, even though the UFC would give him the best pay-per-view opportunities imaginable. Okay, you get put on a Conor McGregor card. Do you understand what I'm saying? You are optimizing Tyron Woodley's pay-per-view potential. Dana White was, right? And he still fumbled. So, fucking hell, dude. Listen, very mixed feelings about this, if I'm being honest. It angers me, but also I find it to be utterly hilarious. And Daniel Cormier, listen, dude, 12 steps and all that, you should maybe go check that shit out, okay? Because Jesus fucking Christ. And you don't want to go and add an alcohol addiction to a very apparent and clear food addiction as well. You'll probably die 30 years faster. So I think you should get on that. And anyways, dude, I'm going to go. You guys have a good day. And see you tomorrow for the fights, right? All right. Toodles. Thank you. Subscribe. Goodbye.